Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever dreamed of winning the lottery? That life-changing moment when everything shifts overnight? The cars, the house, the freedom. No more bills, no more debt, no more one day. We all dream of it. But here's the truth. Most people don't actually want the lottery. They want what the lottery represents. A new life. Now here's the shocker. There's a lottery formula, but it's not the one you think. It's not numbers, tickets, or scratch cards. It's a formula that 99% of people never use. Let me reveal it to you. The formula. The real lottery isn't played in a gas station. It's played in your mind. The numbers you pick aren't on a ticket. They are the choices you make daily. The jackpot isn't millions of dollars. It's the life you design. The formula is simple. Clarity plus consistency plus courage equals freedom. Step 1, clarity. Think about it. When someone buys a lottery ticket, they dream. They imagine their dream home, dream life, dream freedom. But when it comes to real life, most people stop dreaming. They settle. They drift. They forget what they want. Clarity is your ticket. Write down your vision. Name it. See it. Feel it. Because if you don't know the jackpot you're chasing, how will you ever win it? Step 2, consistency. Here's the catch. People buy one ticket, they lose, and they give up. Sound familiar? In life, we do the same. We try once, fail, and quit. But winners, they keep showing up. Every day. Small actions, stacked daily, create massive results. Think of compound interest. A single penny doubled every day becomes millions in 30 days. That's consistency. That's the true jackpot. Step 3, courage. This is the hardest. Courage means playing when you're scared. It means investing in yourself when you don't know the outcome. It means daring to believe you deserve more. The 1% who win in life, they don't just dream. They don't just repeat. They dare. They step forward when others step back. That's courage. And that's how you cash in the formula. Here are some key points related to this. The true lottery is not luck, but the life you design. The formula is clarity plus consistency plus courage equals freedom. Clarity. Define your vision. Know your jackpot. Consistency. Small daily actions create massive results over time. Courage. Growth requires risk and bold choices. Success is not chance. It's a choice you make every single day. You know what's fascinating about people who buy lottery tickets? It's not the ticket itself. It's the moment right after they buy it. They hold that little slip of paper in their hand. And for a brief second, their entire world changes. They allow themselves to dream. Suddenly, they're no longer standing in line at the gas station. No, in their mind, they're walking into their dream home. They're driving the car they've always wanted. They're imagining the look on their families' faces when they say, "We don't have to worry anymore." That small rectangle of printed numbers becomes a passport to possibility. For a short while, the walls of limitation dissolve, and they can see something greater. But here's the tragedy. Most people only allow themselves to dream when there's a ticket involved. Without it, they stop imagining. They let life shrink their vision until it fits into the size of their current paycheck, their current job, their current circumstances. They tell themselves, this is just how things are. And so, they stop buying mental tickets. They stop dreaming. They settle. And that's where most people lose a lottery before they even start playing. Clarity is the very first number in the formula. If you don't know what jackpot you're aiming for, how can you ever expect to win? Imagine stepping into a cab in New York City. The driver looks at you and asks, "Where to?" And you say, "I don't know, just drive." You might go somewhere, sure, but will it be where you truly want to be? Of course not. Yet, that's how most of us live. We wake up, go to work, handle responsibilities, and hope that somehow life drives us to the right destination. But life is not a cab. It doesn't guess where you want to go. It only takes you where you tell it. I once spoke to a man in his 50s who had worked the same job for 30 years. He told me, "I don't know where the last 3 decades went. I just did what I had to do." And I asked him, "Did you ever write down what you wanted?" He looked at me with a mix of sadness and confusion, like the idea had never even occurred to him. That's what lack of clarity does. It steals years from people, not because they're lazy, not because they're incapable, but because they never define what their personal jackpot looked like. Think about children. Ask a child what they want to be, and their answers are full of color and imagination. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a dancer. I want to build the world's biggest house. They don't limit themselves. They dream vividly. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, the paintbrush gets taken away. Fear replaces imagination. Responsibility replaces curiosity. And one day, a person looks around and realizes their dreams have been traded for routine. Clarity is about picking up that paintbrush again. It's about daring to define what you truly want without apologizing for it. There's a quote by Lewis Carroll that says, "If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there." But here's the thing. Most roads don't lead to fulfillment. They just lead to motion. Clarity is the compass that ensures your movement is in the direction of your destiny. Imagine two people planting seeds. The first person just throws random seeds into the ground without knowing what they are. Maybe something grows, maybe it doesn't. But the second person is deliberate. They choose apple seeds because they want an orchard. They water, nurture, and wait. Years later, one person has random patches of growth they don't even understand, while the other is sitting in the shade of their apple trees. Eating fruit from a vision, they plant it with clarity. That's the difference. Clarity turns life from a gamble into a strategy. It transforms wishful thinking into intentional living. When you define your dream clearly, you ignite something powerful in your subconscious. Suddenly, you begin to see opportunities that were invisible before. It's like when you buy a new car, and suddenly you see that exact car everywhere on the road. It was always there, you just never noticed it. Clarity makes your dream unavoidable, unmissable. One of my friends once shared how he wrote down a list of everything he wanted in his future home. He was specific, down to the number of windows, the type of flooring, even the color of the front door. For years, he carried that vision, even when it felt ridiculous. 10 years later, he walked into a house for sale and he froze. It was almost identical to the list he had written. Coincidence? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think clarity aligned his mind with his actions and his choices, and step by step, it brought him to the exact door he had once only imagined. But here's where most people go wrong. They confuse clarity with settling. When asked, "What do you want in life?" they'll say, "I just want to get by. I just want to pay the bills." That's not clarity. That's survival. Clarity is not about what you'll settle for. It's about what you'd create if nothing was holding you back. If you had no limits, no fear, no excuses, what would you truly want? That's the jackpot. And the beauty is, the moment you define it, you've already placed your winning ticket in the game. When we think about the lottery, we think of it as chance. But clarity is not chance, it's design. It's saying, this is a life I choose. This is the picture I will paint. And when you carry that vision long enough, when you nurture with focus and belief, the world begins to bend in its direction. Opportunities line up. People show up. Ideas spark. Not because of magic, but because you told your mind what to look for. Steve Jobs once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." But here's the secret. Clarity gives you the dots to begin with. Without them, your future is a blank page with no path to follow. With them, every step, even the missteps, begin to form a picture that makes sense. So, when you think of the secret lottery formula, remember this. Clarity is your first number. Without it, you're scratching random tickets, hoping to get lucky. With it, you're not hoping anymore, you're choosing. And choosing is the most powerful lottery ticket of all. Consistency is one of those words that sounds simple, almost boring, but hold the power to transform an entire life. The truth is, people don't lose because they lack talent or intelligence or even opportunity. They lose because they quit too soon. Think about the lottery again. Someone buys a ticket, scratches it, and when they don't win, they toss it away and swear off the whole game. That's exactly how people treat their goals. They try once, twice, maybe 3 times, and when the jackpot doesn't show up, they assume it wasn't meant for them. But here's the reality. The jackpot in life doesn't go to the person who tries once. It goes to the one who keeps showing up over and over when the results are invisible, when no one's clapping, when the dream feels so far it almost hurts to keep believing. There's a story about bamboo that always amazes me. When you plant a bamboo seed, nothing happens for years. You water it, nurture it, give it sunlight, and for 5 long years you see nothing, not even a sprout. And then, in the 5th year, almost overnight, it shoots up to over 80 feet tall. Now, did the bamboo grow in 6 weeks? Or did it grow in 5 years? The truth is, it was always growing. The roots were digging deep, building strength, laying a foundation. But only the farmer who kept watering, who refused to give up during those silent years, got to see the miracle. That's consistency. It's watering your dream when the soil looks empty. I once met a young woman who dreamed of becoming a writer. She wrote for 6 months, posting her stories online. Barely anyone read them. After a year, she had a handful of followers. She almost quit. "Maybe I'm not good enough," she said. But she didn't stop. She kept writing every single day, even when it felt pointless. By her 3rd year, she had thousands of readers. By her 5th year, a publisher reached out. Today, her books are on shelves around the world. When I asked her what the secret was, she smiled and said, "I just kept showing up." That's it. She didn't win because she was the smartest or the most talented. She won because she was consistent. Consistency is often misunderstood. People think it means intensity, like working 12 hours a day, grinding without rest. But true consistency isn't about burning yourself out. It's about doing something small every day that adds up to something massive over time. Think of compound interest. If I offered you $1 million today, or a penny that doubled every day for 30 days, which would you take? Most people grab the million, but that tiny penny, doubled daily, becomes over 5 million by the end of the month. That's the power of consistency. It doesn't impress you on day 1 or day 2 or even day 10, but give it time and it will outperform everything else. People admire overnight success stories, but they don't see the years of invisible work behind them. They see the person standing on the stage, but not the thousands of hours they spent practicing alone. They see the best-selling book, but not the countless drafts thrown in the trash. They see the championship trophy, but not the mornings the athlete woke up before sunrise to train. Consistency is the invisible currency of success. It's what builds trust with yourself. Every time you show up, even when it's inconvenient, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. There's something deeply emotional about consistency, too. Because every time you stay true to your path, you're telling yourself, "I matter. My dream matters." That's powerful. Think about someone training for a marathon. The first run feels good, maybe even exciting. But by the 20th run, when the rain is pouring, when their legs ache, when the world tells them to stay in bed, that's when consistency speaks. Every run becomes a declaration, "I'm not giving up on me." The hardest part about consistency is that it rarely gives you applause. No one is watching you practice when you're tired. No one is cheering you on when you write another page that no one reads. No one is patting your back when you save another $20 toward your goal. But that's the point. Consistency is not about external validation. It's about building internal proof that you are serious about your life. It's quiet. It's steady. It's unglamorous. But it's unstoppable. Thomas Edison once said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." That quote should make us pause. How many people abandon the field when they're just inches from the finish line? How many lives remain unfulfilled simply because someone couldn't endure the silence long enough? Consistency doesn't guarantee instant victory, but quitting guarantees defeat. I remember hearing about a man who started doing push-ups every day. He began with 5. That's all he could do. The next day, he did 6, then 7. It didn't look like much. A month later, he was doing 30. 6 months later, he could do 100 without stopping. Did he get there because he was special? No. He got there because he added 1 more each day. That's the magic. Small daily deposits create fortunes in the long run. Consistency is also contagious. When you're consistent, you inspire others around you. Your children, your friends, your community. They see your persistence and begin to believe in their own possibilities. It's like a ripple effect. One disciplined act can echo far beyond your life. Think of a parent who works hard every day to provide for their family. Their kids grow up watching that. They may not say out loud, but the example is burned into them. And years later, they carry that same consistency into their own lives. The greatest enemy of consistency is impatience. We live in a world that glorifies instant results. Fast food, quick success, overnight delivery. But the things that matter, health, relationships, wealth, mastery, are all built slowly, brick by brick, step by step. The question is, can you stay the course when the results aren't visible? Can you trust the process when the reward feels distant? Because those who can, they're the ones who eventually stand in the light, while everyone else wonders how they did it. The truth is, anyone can be consistent for a day. Anyone can show up when it's easy. But very few can show up when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's lonely. And that's why consistency separates the 1% from the 99%. It's not about brilliance. It's about persistence. It's about saying, I will keep planting. I will keep watering. I will keep showing up, even when the soil looks empty. Because one day, when the roots are strong enough, the bamboo breaks through, and the world finally sees what you've been nurturing all along. Courage is the final piece of the formula, and in many ways, it's the most demanding. Clarity tells you what you want. Consistency keeps you moving toward it. But courage is a fuel that allows you to take the leaps others are too afraid to even attempt. Without courage, clarity remains a dream scribbled in a notebook, and consistency becomes a routine that never quite breaks past the walls of safety. Courage is that trembling step forward when your heart is pounding, when every voice in your head tells you to turn back, but something deeper inside whispers, go. I remember a story of a man who worked at a factory for over 2 decades. He was good at his job, dependable, never miss a day. But every night, he would go home and sketch designs of furniture. He had this gift, this eye for creating pieces that were both functional and beautiful. He dreamed of opening his own workshop. But for years, he told himself, it's too risky. What if I fail? What if no one buys? And so, he stayed at the factory, day after day, until one morning the factory announced it was shutting down. In that moment, he realized something devastating. He had been afraid of losing everything, but by not having the courage to act, he had already lost the one thing he couldn't replace, time. Courage is terrifying because it demands vulnerability. It means putting yourself out there when there are no guarantees. It means risking rejection, embarrassment, and sometimes even heartbreak. But here's the paradox. Everything you truly want sits on the other side of that fear. You don't build muscles by lifting weights you can already handle. You don't grow by staying in the comfort zone of what feels safe. You grow by leaning into resistance, by stepping into discomfort. Courage is a permission slip to live fully. Think of the first time someone stands on a stage to speak in front of a crowd. Their palms sweat, their voice shakes, their stomach twists. They want to run, but then they take a breath, open their mouth, and let the words spill out. And when it's over, something changes inside them. They realize the fear was not a wall, only a curtain. And once it's pulled back, they see the vast space of what's possible. That's courage. It doesn't erase fear, it walks with it. There's a powerful quote by Nelson Mandela. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. That line strikes at the heart of what we all need to understand. Courage is not about being fearless. Fear will always be there. Courage is about deciding to act anyway. It's about refusing to let fear drive your decisions. I once heard about a young woman who dreamed of studying abroad. She had never left her hometown, had never been on a plane. The thought of moving to another country alone terrified her. Her family told her stay. Her friends told her it was too dangerous, and her own mind replayed 1,000 reasons why it would go wrong. But something inside her wouldn't let the dream die. So she applied. She boarded that plane. And years later, she said that moment was the single most defining choice of her life. She didn't just earn a degree. She discovered her independence, her strength, her confidence. Courage gave her a life she never would have known if she had stayed home. What holds most people back is the illusion that safety equals happiness. They think if they avoid risk, if they play small, if they keep everything predictable, they'll be secure. But life doesn't work that way. Playing small doesn't protect you. It suffocates you. Safety becomes its own prison, one where the walls aren't made of steel, but excuses. And one day, people wake up and wonder why they feel so empty despite being safe. The truth is, the cage of comfort is the most dangerous place to live because it robs you of your potential while convincing you it's protecting you. Courage doesn't always look like grand gestures. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to leave a toxic relationship. Sometimes it's walking into a room where you feel like you don't belong. Sometimes it's picking up the phone to make that call or hitting publish on something you've created, knowing people might criticize it. Courage isn't about slaying dragons every day. It's about choosing the small, uncomfortable steps that lead to the life you actually want. There's a man named Sylvester Stallone whose story embodies this. Before Rocky became one of the greatest films of all time, Stallone was broke, rejected by countless agents, and living with barely enough to eat. He had written the script for Rocky, but studios kept turning him down. Finally, a studio offered to buy it, but they didn't want him to play the lead role. He refused, even though he desperately needed the money. He said, "If I sell it and I'm not in it, it's not my story." He held on, despite the fear, despite the hunger, despite the odds. Eventually, a studio agreed, and the rest is history. That wasn't luck. That was courage. The courage to say no to the safe option and yes to the risk of ridicule and rejection. And that's the truth about courage. It rarely feels good in the moment. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff with your heart in your throat. But later, when you look back, it feels like freedom. The risks you didn't take become regrets. The chances you didn't seize become ghosts. But the leaps you took, the shaky steps forward, become the chapters you tell with pride. Courage is also magnetic. When you see someone else living boldly, it sparks something inside you. It reminds you of what's possible. Think about the people you admire most. Are they the ones who played it safe, who never dared, who stayed in their lane? Or are they the ones who risked failure, who stood out, who tried something different? We don't celebrate caution, we celebrate courage. But here's the secret many don't realize. Courage isn't a one-time act. It's not just a big leap once in your life. It's a daily practice. It's choosing honesty over silence. It's choosing growth over comfort. It's choosing to take the step forward even when your knees are shaking. And every act of courage, no matter how small, builds on the next. Over time, you create a life that's not ruled by fear, but fueled by boldness. At the end of the day, courage is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Without it, you stay standing on the shore, watching others cross. With it, you may stumble, you may fall, you may get bruised, but you move. You move toward the vision, toward the freedom, toward the jackpot that only a small percentage ever claim. And when you look back, you'll realize that courage was never about being unafraid. It was about honoring your dream enough to walk forward, even with the fear by your side. Consistency without patience is like planting seeds in a field and then digging them up every morning to see if they've grown. Nothing flourishes that way. Growth takes time, and time requires trust. The fourth point of the formula is about understanding that small, steady actions may look insignificant at first, but when they compound, they create transformations that feel almost miraculous. The trouble is, most people don't last long enough to see the compounding. They want the harvest without the seasons of waiting, the reward without the repetition, the breakthrough without the boring in-between. And so they quit, not because the dream wasn't real, but because they lost faith in the process. Think about a sculptor. He doesn't take a single swing of his hammer and expect the marble to turn into a masterpiece. He chips away, day after day, strike after strike, until slowly the figure begins to emerge. If someone walked in during the first 1,000 strikes, they might see nothing but broken stone and dust. They might laugh and say, "What's the point? You're wasting your time." But the sculptor knows. He knows every small strike is shaping something bigger than what the eye can see. Consistency works the same way. It feels invisible at first, but it is never wasted. There's a story about a man named James Clear who wrote about habits. He told the story of an ice cube. Imagine a room that's 26 degrees. The ice cube sits there, frozen solid. The temperature rises to 27, then 28, then 29. Still nothing happens. 30, 31, no change. But then it reaches 32, and suddenly the ice begins to melt. Now here's the question. Did the melting happen at 32 degrees, or did it happen because of all the degrees before it? Every step. Every degree was part of the transformation, but the visible result came only at the tipping point. That's how progress feels in real life. We put in the work day after day, wondering if anything is happening, and then suddenly there's a breakthrough. But the breakthrough wasn't sudden. It was built by quiet, unseen consistency. I knew a man once who struggled with his weight. For years he tried diets, workouts, programs, and nothing seemed to stick. One day he made a decision. Instead of chasing quick fixes, he would commit to walking 20 minutes a day. Just that, nothing more. He did it every morning. At first, nothing happened. A week went by, no change. A month went by, still nothing noticeable. But he kept going. 6 months later, he had lost over 40 pounds. A year later, he had transformed not just his body, but his energy, his confidence, his entire life. When asked what his secret was, he said, "I just didn't stop. I did the little thing every day." That's the quiet power of compounding. Small actions, multiplied over time, create revolutions. The truth is, people love intensity because it feels dramatic. They like the idea of running 10 miles in one day, fasting for a week, working 20 hours straight on a new project. But intensity without consistency is like a spark without wood. It burns bright for a moment, then vanishes. Consistency may not dazzle, but it builds fire that lasts. It's not about doing everything in a day. It's about doing something every day. The danger is that most of us underestimate small actions because they don't give immediate gratification. If you eat a salad today, you won't wake up with a new body tomorrow. If you read a book tonight, you won't become a genius by morning. If you put away $10, you won't feel rich the next week. So we dismiss these small actions as meaningless. But what we fail to see is that small actions, repeated daily, have a way of reshaping everything. As Darren Hardy once said, "You will never change your life until you change something you do daily." The secret of success is found in your daily routine. There's another story I often think about. 2 friends set out to learn the guitar. The first practiced intensely for 2 weeks, spending hours every day. But after the initial excitement wore off, he got tired, discouraged, and stopped. The second friend practiced only 15 minutes a day, every day, no matter what. A year later, who do you think could play beautifully? The one who chose consistency over bursts of intensity. It's not what you do once in a while that shapes you. It's what you do repeatedly. Consistency is also about resilience. Because let's be honest, it's not glamorous to show up on the days you don't feel like it. It's not easy to keep going when the results aren't visible. But those are the days that count the most. Anyone can show up when it's fun, when it's exciting, when it feels rewarding. But champions are made on the boring days, the hard days, the days when no one is watching and nothing seems to be happening. That's where true transformation is born. I think of a farmer planting crops. He doesn't plant once and then stare at the soil demanding instant fruit. He trusts the process. He waters, weeds, waits. He knows nature has its own rhythm. If he digs up the seeds out of impatience, he kills them. But if he tends to them faithfully, he reaps the harvest in its season. Life is the same. You can't rush the harvest, but you can prepare for it by showing up every day. Sometimes consistency requires you to battle boredom. Doing the same thing again and again feels dull. But boredom is not the enemy. Distraction is. Boredom is a sign you're building discipline, while distraction is a thief that steals your progress. When you embrace the boredom of consistency, you realize it's not about excitement. It's about commitment. Excitement starts a journey, but consistency finishes it. Winston Churchill once said, "Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm." That's another layer of consistency. It's not just about doing the work, but about carrying the spirit to keep doing it even when you stumble. Because failure will come. Setbacks will come. But if you can remain steady through them, if you can rise every time you fall, your consistency will outlast every obstacle. I've met people who weren't the smartest in the room, who weren't the most talented, who didn't even have the best opportunities, but they were unstoppable because they were consistent. They built businesses, changed their bodies, rewrote their lives, not because of sudden miracles, but because of steady habits. They understood something most people never do. Consistency beats intensity, persistence beats perfection, and compounding beats luck. And maybe that's why so few people ever claim the jackpot of life. They scratch one ticket, it doesn't win, and they throw the whole dream away. But the secret is this: the ticket was never the paper in your hand. The ticket is the action you take every single day. The small, ordinary, repetitive steps that don't look like much until one day they add up to something extraordinary. The lottery formula is not chance, it's choice. And consistency is the proof that you're willing to keep choosing, even when the payoff isn't yet visible. Courage in action is very different from courage in theory. It's one thing to talk about being brave, to imagine yourself making bold decisions, to picture a fearless version of yourself. But when the moment arrives and the decision is staring you in the face, courage isn't poetic, it's messy. It's your heart racing, your palms sweating, your voice cracking, and your knees trembling while you step forward anyway. Action is where courage earns its name. And without it, dreams remain untouched possibilities that never cross the threshold into reality. I once heard about a man who had always dreamed of being a musician. He played guitar alone in his room, pouring his soul into the strings, but he never dared perform in front of anyone. For years, he told himself, "One day, when I'm ready, I'll share my music." But ready never came, because readiness is an illusion. Then one night, he went to an open mic event at a local cafe. As he watched others get up to sing, something inside him snapped. He felt a pull that terrified him but wouldn't let him go. With shaking hands, he wrote his name on the list. When his turn came, his chest tightened, his throat went dry, and he thought about running. But instead, he stepped onto that tiny stage, strummed his guitar, and sang. His voice cracked, his fingers fumbled, but the room erupted in applause. It wasn't about perfection. It was about the act itself. That night changed him forever, not because he became famous, but because he proved himself that he could act in spite of fear. That is courage in action. The hardest part of courage is that it often shows up in moments that look ordinary from the outside, but feel monumental from within. To an outsider, it might seem like a small choice. Speaking up at a meeting, walking away from a bad relationship, applying for a new job. But to the person making the decision, it's a mountain. Courage is not measured by how big it looks to others, but by how much it costs you to do it. The things that scare you the most are often the things that carry the greatest potential to shift your life. Think about Rosa Parks on that bus in Montgomery. She wasn't holding a microphone. She wasn't on a stage. She wasn't trying to be a hero. She was simply tired of giving in, tired of being pushed down, tired of being told she had no right to choose her seat. That simple act of staying seated was an explosion of courage and action that shifted history. What looks like a single moment of defiance was actually the beginning of a chain reaction that rippled across generations. Courage in action doesn't always come with a spotlight, but it always creates impact. Most people hesitate because they imagine all the ways things could go wrong. The fear of failure, of rejection, of ridicule, it paralyzes them. But courage doesn't promise you a clean outcome. Sometimes you will stumble. Sometimes you will fail. Sometimes you will face criticism. But here's the truth. The pain of trying and falling is never as heavy as the pain of regret for never trying at all. Ask anyone at the end of their life what haunts them most, and it's rarely the mistakes they made. It's the chances they didn't take, the word they never said, the steps they never dared to make. There was a woman I met once who had been in a secure but soul-crushing job for over 15 years. She hated Mondays, dreaded mornings, and lived for weekends. But she had a dream. She wanted to open a bakery. She would talk about it with a sparkle in her eyes, describing the smells, the recipes, the colors of the shop she imagined. But every time she thought of leaving her job, fear gripped her. What if it fails? What if I lose everything? She'd whisper. One day, after a health scare that shook her, she decided to take the leap. She opened a bakery with trembling hands and more uncertainty than confidence. At first, it was hard. Slow days, financial stress, long hours. But slowly, people began to come, drawn not just by her pastries, but by the joy and love she poured into the place. Years later, her bakery became a community staple. She told me, I thought I was risking my life by leaving security, but the real risk was never daring to live at all. That is what courage in action does. It doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. Courage in action is contagious. When one person steps out, it gives others permission to do the same. You've probably seen it at a wedding when the dance floor is empty and no one dares to go first. But then one person gets up, maybe awkwardly, maybe a little embarrassed, but they start moving. Suddenly, another joins, then another, until the whole floor is alive. That's the ripple effect of courage. One person's bravery can ignite a fire in everyone around them. Imagine what would happen if more of us lived like that, not waiting for permission, not waiting for the perfect moment, but stepping out first, shaky and real. The truth is, courage in action rarely feels like confidence. People wait until they feel brave, but that moment never comes. Action is what creates confidence, not the other way around. You don't wait until you feel like a runner to start running. You put on your shoes and take the first step, and slowly, you become a runner. You don't wait until you feel ready to start a business. You take the leap, and with each step, you learn and grow. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's movement in the presence of fear. There's a quote I love. Ships are safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. And neither are you. You weren't built to stay in the dock of comfort, tied to safety, waiting for life to pass you by. You were built for the ocean, for risk, for storms, for discovery, for horizons you can't yet see. The harbor may feel secure, but nothing grows there. Out on the waters, yes, you may face waves, yes, you may face storms, but you'll also find freedom, adventure, and the realization of who you really are. When you look at the people you admire most in life, chances are the defining moments were acts of courage in action. Not thoughts, not ideas, not dreams, but choices. They moved, they acted, they risked, and those choices shaped their lives and the lives of those around them. Courage is always a choice, and it rarely knocks twice. When the moment presents itself, you either step forward or you let it pass. The question is, when your moment comes, will you be the one who moves? Because in the end, courage in action is not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming free. Free from the prison of what if, free from the weight of regret, free from the chains of comfort. It's about proving to yourself that you are bigger than your fear, that your dream is worth the risk, and that your life is not meant to be lived on sidelines. And when you act, when you take that leap, when you put courage into motion, you discover that the secret lottery formula was never about luck at all. It was always about daring to play it. There's something almost magical about consistency. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't sound heroic, and it rarely feels exciting in the moment. In fact, it often feels boring, repetitive, and invisible. Yet, if there's one force that quietly separates those who achieve what they dream of from those who never move beyond wishing, it is the power of showing up again and again, long after the excitement fades. Think of water dripping on stone. One drop means nothing. 10 drops leave no mark. But thousands of drops, hitting the same spot over time, carve into the rock. That's what consistency does. It shapes the unshapable, moves the immovable, and transforms what once looked impossible into the inevitable. I remember a young man who wanted to change his life by getting healthier. At first, he was fired up. He bought new workout clothes, filled his fridge with greens, downloaded an app, and told all his friends he was going to transform his body in 3 months. The first week, he was unstoppable. By week 2, the soreness set in. By week 3, the excitement dimmed. By week 4, the temptation of old habits returned. He thought about giving up because the mirror wasn't showing the results he expected. But then he remembered something his coach had told him. Don't focus on what changes this week. Focus on the fact that you showed up. That's the win. So he kept showing up, day after day, week after week. Some days were sloppy. Some workouts were half-hearted. But he never stopped. Months later, without realizing when it happened, he had become a different person, not just in body, but in identity. He no longer had to force himself to exercise. It became who he was. That's the quiet magic of consistency. Consistency works in the shadows, often unnoticed. Think of a writer who dreams of publishing a book. Many people imagine writing in bursts of inspiration, waiting for that perfect day when creativity flows effortlessly. But every author who has finished a book will tell you the truth. Inspiration is unreliable. Discipline is everything. Some mornings the words come easily, like a flood rushing onto page. Other mornings, every sentence feels forced and clumsy. But the ones who finish are the ones who write anyway. They sit down, even on the bad days. They type through the fog, through the boredom, through the self-doubt. And over time, one page turns into 10 into 100, and what once seemed like a dream becomes a finished manuscript. The applause, the recognition, the sense of accomplishment, all of it traces back to those ordinary, unseen mornings of simply showing up. Most people underestimate how much consistency compounds. It's not about what you do once in a while. It's about what you do repeatedly. Eating one salad doesn't change your health. Reading one book doesn't change your mind. Saving money once doesn't change your financial future. But do these things daily, and the compound effect becomes unstoppable. Consistency is like planting seeds. At first, nothing seems to happen. You water the soil, you tend to it, you keep coming back. But the ground looks the same. It's easy to think your effort is wasted. But underground, roots are spreading, foundations are forming, and in time, the breakthrough happens. The seed pushes through, and suddenly everyone sees the result. They'll call it luck. They'll call it talent. But you'll know the truth. It was consistency day after day when no one was watching. Think of Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." His light bulb didn't appear from a single spark of genius. It came from relentless consistency. Day after day, he experimented, adjusted, and refined. Imagine the patience it takes to fail thousands of times and still show up again the next morning with the same determination. That's consistency. It transforms failure from a dead end into a stepping stone. And it's not just inventors or artists. It's in everyday life. A parent who shows up every day for their child, reading bedtime stories, asking about their day, listening with attention. That consistency builds trust that lasts a lifetime. A student who studies a little every day, instead of cramming the night before, builds not just knowledge, but confidence in their ability to handle challenges. A person who practices gratitude daily, even in small ways, rewires their mind to focus on abundance instead of scarcity. None of these acts are glamorous, but their impact compounds into extraordinary results. The danger is that inconsistency feels harmless in the short term. Skipping one workout doesn't make you unhealthy. Missing one day of writing doesn't erase your progress. Spending recklessly once doesn't ruin your finances. That's why it's so easy to dismiss. But inconsistency is like erosion. You don't notice it at first, but over time, it wears away at everything you've built. Consistency, on the other hand, is construction. Every small act adds a brick, a piece of reinforcement, until one day you look up and see a fortress you didn't know you were building. There was once a man who wanted to learn the piano. He had no background in music, no natural talent, and started at an age when most people are long past beginning new skills. But he committed to practicing for just 20 minutes every day. That was it. Not hours of training, just 20 minutes. At first, progress was slow. His fingers stumbled, his timing was off, and he doubted himself constantly. But he kept showing up. Weeks turned into months, months into years. After a while, he could play songs fluidly, then more complex pieces, and eventually he played in front of others with confidence. People were amazed and said, "You must be so gifted." But he wasn't gifted. He was consistent. Consistency is also a test of character because it asks you to keep moving without immediate reward. We live in a world addicted to quick results. We want transformation in 30 days, success overnight, breakthroughs instantly. But real change rarely works that way. True transformation is slow, steady, and built on thousands of small, invisible steps. It asks for faith, because you won't see the fruit right away. It asks for patience, because the process is often longer than you want. And it asks for resilience, because there will be days when you stumble, when you fall behind, when you wonder if it's even worth it. But consistency isn't about never failing. It's about always returning. Missing a day isn't failure. Quitting is. Imagine a pot of water on a stove. At 90 degrees, nothing happens. At 95 degrees, still nothing. At 99 degrees, it looks the same. But at 100 degrees, it boils, transforming into steam, powerful enough to move engines and generate energy. That one extra degree makes all the difference. Consistency is the act of keeping the heat on, even when it looks like nothing is happening, until suddenly everything changes. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about consistency is how it reshapes identity. When you consistently act in alignment with your goals, you stop saying, I want to be, and start saying, I am. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to get healthy. You see yourself as a healthy person. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to write. You see yourself as a writer. You no longer see yourself as someone struggling with money. You see yourself as disciplined and financially wise. Consistency transforms effort into identity, and identity sustains effort. So while the world chases shortcuts and secrets, while many look for hacks and tricks to get instant results, the true secret, the one that 99% never use, is a quiet, steady power showing up every single day, especially when it's hard, especially when it's boring, especially when no one is watching. Because consistency is the closest thing to a guarantee life ever offers. If you keep going, you will grow, you will change, and you will win in ways that others call impossible. But you will know we're inevitable all along that so here we are. You've heard the stories, the struggles, the truths that most people ignore. And now the choice is in your hands. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when life feels easier. Now. Because every day you wait is another day lost to fear, hesitation, and comfort. Consistency. Courage. Belief. Action. These are not just words. They are the formula almost no one uses, but the one that always works. And it is sitting right in front of you. Don't wait for luck. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for stars to align. They won't. The moment is already here. The question is, will you take it? Remember this. Small steps, repeated daily, create unstoppable momentum. Courage in action rewrites your future. Faith in yourself opens doors that fear keeps shut. And consistency builds a life no lottery ticket could ever buy. So stand up. Decide today. Commit today. Begin today. Not later. Not someday. Today. Because the secret formula doesn't work unless you do. And when doubt whispers, when fear screams, when excuses creep in, tell yourself this truth. I don't need the lottery. I am the lottery. Your support means everything. If this resonated with you, please share, and subscribe. That's the line I want echoing in your mind. Because once you understand that the winning ticket has always been you, your choices, your actions, your courage, you'll never play small again. The jackpot isn't out there waiting to be claimed. It's inside you, waiting to be unleashed. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.